Hey friend. So I was talking to my buddy Sean Clark about the ECMAScript 5 reduce method on arrays, and we were kind of going over some of the cool and useful things you can do with it. And I mentioned that in theory you could recreate all the other array iteration methods that came in ES5 using reduce. So let's go ahead and open those up for reference. Yeah, these babies. So again, in theory, using reduce we can mimic each one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and show you, whether you care or not, how to create for each, every, sum, filter, map, and if you're lucky, reduce, all using reduce. So let's make a play object here. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I'm going there fast. 4 is probably enough. Oh, actually, I guess I'll blow this up so those of you in the back row can see. I'm kidding, there's no back row. Alright, where was I? Alright, obviously these are real names. So, I'm going to start with for each, and I'd like to go ahead and say that, first of all, in general, this whole thing that I'm doing using reduce to recreate all these, I'm not necessarily recommending it. In fact, I'm not recommending it. In fact, I'm saying don't do it. It's just kind of an experiment showing the power of reduce. So starting with for each, this is not actually going to show anything useful off because, um, well, you'll see what I mean, but it's pretty stupid. I'm just going to do it for completionist sake. So let's say we're going to loop through people, and we're going to say, Jesus, apparently I can't type right now. So we're going to loop through each person, and we're just going to say console.log p person. So we're logging the index and the person itself. And bam, there you go. Wow, that was magic. So we have all 4 of them logged out, and the result is undefined. So again, this is stupid, but I'm going to do it anyway. We can recreate that using reduce by saying, I'm not going to teach you how to use reduce here unless people ask me to, and I'll do that somewhere else. But assuming you know how to use reduce, I'm just going to go ahead and use it. So what should I say here? People. Now we'll call it response, even though technically, because of scoping, people would work fine. And I'll just log out p in person again. So, oh yeah, and actually, we need an initial value here because the way reduce works, if you don't have an initial value, it'll use the first object, or rather the first item in the array, as the initial value. So in that case, it wouldn't hit it in the iteration, and therefore we wouldn't get the exact result we want. So I'm just going to put a null there, or empty array, null, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Just the fact that there is an initial value there. So same exact behavior, returns undefined because we weren't returning from reduce. Again, not very interesting. So let's just go straight to every, not even talk about that. So as you know, every returns a boolean. So let's say return person.name equals Jake. So does every person's name or whatever has Jake as name? No, obviously. And then just to get the opposite value, let's go ahead and say return person dot has own property what ID. Sure, so they all have ID. So to recreate these using reduce, I'm going to start every with a value of false. No, I'm going to start with a value of true, so that by the time we hit the first one, well, whatever, I'll just write it. This is all kind of coming out of the mind, unfiltered, but let's say return the initial value, which we'll call is true, and person dot name equals Jake. So this is true is kind of passed through to each one, and just because of the and being returned, we're building onto it every time we hit a new item in the iteration. So this should be the same. Yeah, it should be false. And then I can do the same thing here for person.hasOwn property. God, freaking capital letters. Yeah, cool. False, true, false, true. Not super useful. Sum is the same way. Let's just do this really quick. So some person's name is Jake. Obviously that's true. Let's clear this out. There, so it's true. We use reduce, and the initial value we'll say is true again, or rather is Jake. Ooh, because obviously variables, what you name the variable directly impacts the way the code runs. So, and we'll actually with some we'll probably want to start that with false and say return is Jake or person.name equals Jake, because we want if one of these is true. Yay! Alright, those are kind of dumb. Next is filter, and this one is more interesting because filter's more interesting. It returns an array. So let's say filter, let's say return, let's go with IDs. So person.id, what did I do here? Did I use numbers? Yeah, look at that. Alright, cool. So let's say return person.id is greater than what? Greater than 2. So there's 2 of them. One has 5, one has 3. So to do this in reduce, it's a little more interesting, right? So the initial value, we'll call it, I don't know, people? Sure. The initial value is going to be an array, because we're returning an array. And the way this is going to work is we're going to say if, let's see, return if person.id is greater than 2. We'll say people.push person, and we want to return that. What? Bear with me, I've never done this. Oh, right. We want to return something either way. So actually that's a stupid way of doing it. Let's just say return people. So we're always returning people, but in this case we're pushing to it as well. Yay! 5, 3. Okay, so that's filter. Obviously it's shorter code to just use filter, but again, I don't know how many times I have to say this. This is just kind of an experiment. Alright, so next is map, and map is actually the same as filter pretty much in theory. So let's say we're going to return person dot flip a coin, Ross. Person dot name. So we're an array of names. For filter, or whatever, for map, we would translate this by doing the same thing. We'll say people, I'll just keep it spelled wrong. Return how did I spell it? People right above that we'll say people. God, typos are killing me. I can't type the word wrong, even though I did the first time. Can't do it on purpose. So we'll say people.push person.name. Yay! So that's it. Again, this isn't like this particular use of reduce is not something I would recommend, but it is interesting that reduce can do all of this. I mean, I love that you can return any primitive value, or any, hell, you can return any non-primitive value, just any value at all you can build onto using reduce, and I love that. I wish I would have discovered this earlier. I've only really started to understand reduce a couple months ago, and it's funny because I've understood map for years now, and I loved it, and I kind of just always wrote off reduce because I didn't understand it. But take the time to understand it because it's awesome. Well, and especially in combination with map. But anyway, I think that's all I wanted to cover. On account of it is all I wanted to cover. So, without further ado, goodbye.